As somebody once said, Merry New Year, or Merry Christmas, or Happy Holidays, or all of the above. Welcome to another edition, our Week 17 preview edition on Christmas Eve. 3 shows this week. We're not going to work Christmas, although Netflix and Amazon Prime, they will be working Christmas. We are doing our show here today. Hi, everybody. Andrew Siciliano, inside coverage, the how and the why, any and everything you need to know about the National Football League. We're going to count down our favorite games, the games that mean the most to us as we actually head into Week 17 with a legitimate scenario where every single playoff seed is taken by Monday night when that game is over in who's playing Monday night? Oh, yeah, in Atlanta, the Rams and the Falcons. That scenario exists. As it stands right now, there are 4 games or 4 teams that, or 4 spots, Andrew, take 3, 4 spots that are open. We're going to open the presents right now. And to do that, Jori Epstein, Ben Fawkes, gentlemen, ladies, happy holidays to you both. It sounds like I hit the eggnog early. I promise you, Jori, I do not drink eggnog.
I also do not drink eggnog, but I don't have any aversion to it. I don't think I've tried it.
Never tried it?
You're missing
Ben,
out.
are you an eggnog guy?
Good. Yeah, I mean, I think, once a year, once every couple of years. I wouldn't say it's in the refrigerator too frequently, but
it's disgusting.
It's good. It's a nice little change up. You need like a glass though, or like half a glass. You don't need like a pint of eggnog. It's never going to get drunk.
But isn't that the warning? Like if you need to tell somebody, hey, this is good, but you shouldn't, only drink like a half glass. Isn't that the sign
well, you get it
that
for
it
a party.
isn't good?
You have a little bit. Everyone else at the party has the rest. Everyone's a winner.
Okay. I feel like it's the one drink that no one truly likes. They just say that they like it because they feel like they need to like it. They're socially shamed into liking it when deep down inside they actually hate it. And they drink it just to drink it, just to say, oh, yeah, I had eggnog.
Or Jori hasn't even tried it and just says she doesn't like it. It's hard to.
Yeah, I just,
we don't know.
Screw social norms. I'm just going to admit I have not had eggnog.
Okay, see, Jori, because you are the pop culture maven, I thought about it. But I didn't want to put you on the spot. I thought about starting the show today by simply saying, Jori, what is like your favorite holiday movie, your favorite Christmas movie, your favorite Hanukkah movie, your favorite December good feeling movie? But you probably don't have an answer, do you?
I do love the Home Alones, and I'll like the Eloise at the Plaza at Christmas time. I saw those growing up. So
okay, did you see the SNL
Home Alone was fun. I feel like my brothers
Saturday
and I just wanted to like turn our house into that.
Okay, did you though?
Did I see which?
Did you ever turn your house into that?
Oh, did I? Sorry, I thought you were asking Saturday night. Definitely not full. I feel like we would have a shenanigan here or there, but I think we're still working on it. It's kind of still our aspiration, even as adults.
Okay, yeah, do it.
Don't tell my husband.
Do what SNL did Saturday night, where they actually reshot the end of Home Alone and they all died. Anyone see that? No?
I saw it, Andrew. It was good. It was
fantastic.
Good.
It's like there are major loopholes in that movie. There are major blind spots in that movie. That is one of the blind spots. And they finally closed it. All right. So we're not going to do the Christmas Day games because, to be quite frank, they're not good. I know that Frank went all bah humbug on Tuesday's show. I'm not going to do that. Because, and I really do mean this, I don't want to rip guys like Chris Oladokun. Like, this is his shot. He's starting on Christmas Day. Josh Johnson gets another shot on Christmas Day. He's a former Sacramento Mountain Lion of the UFL. He's played for every organized football team on every continent. He gets another shot. They're not the most exciting games. They're not. So we're going to skip them, and we're going to move on to the games that mean the most to us. This is a weird week because there are the 3 Christmas Day games, the first 2 on Netflix, and then the last one on Prime. There are 2 games on Saturday. They're meaningful. There are 7 games in the early window on Sunday and then 2 games in the late window. There are 6 games this week between teams that are currently either A, in the playoffs, or B, in playoff position or fighting. They're in contention. And I just as you get ready for the holidays and maybe you root for a team that has already been eliminated, you root for a team where everything is sad this time of the year, just want to tell you that there is hope because there are 5 new teams in the playoffs now. That's 36 consecutive years that at least 4 new teams make the playoffs. There are 3 teams that went worst to first, the Bears, the Patriots, and the 49ers. And there are 2 teams that were picking in the top 5 last year in the draft, Jacksonville and New England, that made the playoffs. So I'm telling you that next year there is a chance for your team if they're not in it now. All right, let's get going with a Sunday 4 o'clock game. We're going to start with the Eagles and the Bills. This is 10-5 on the road at 11-4. The 3 seed in the NFC, the 6 seed in the AFC. Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi, the A team on this one. The Eagles have already clinched the NFC East for the 2nd consecutive season. Obviously, nobody had done that since all the way back in 2004. Philadelphia can't be the 1 seed, but they can get to number 2 if they win out and the Bears lose out. Buffalo has a 1 game, or rather is back 1 game in the AFC East behind the Patriots, but they have the tiebreakers with New England. So keep that in mind. If they ended a tie, Buffalo is going to win the division. Guys, I saw the Bills in person last week. Buffalo runs the ball well. James Cook is pretty incredible. However, Buffalo cannot stop the run. Jori, this is the game, and the Eagles have won 2 straight. They're finally getting that ground game back. This is the game, in my eyes, in which they team up for the bully ball, or rather they warm up for the bully ball that they need to play come January. If the Bills cannot stop the Eagles' run game, and I don't think they'll be able to, they're going to play too high and say, go ahead, run it, and they're going to run it. This, to me, bodes well for Philadelphia's future in the playoffs. This is their litmus test.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm glad you brought up the Bills' ability or inability to stop the Eagles' run, because the Bills, according to Next Gen Stats, are averaging 8.5 yards per carry before contact allowed. So they are really just not hitting guys early on. And I think that's exactly what Philly will want to see in many ways, because their yards before carry have plummeted since right tackle Lane Johnson went out with the Lisfranc injury. Unclear if he'll be back this week, but the Eagles have really struggled to run, particularly to the right side. And when they're not a balanced offense, they struggle generally as an offense. And so, yes, we have seen improved offensive play and scoring from the Eagles in recent weeks against the Raiders and the Commanders. But the Bills are going to be another level in terms of, are they actually out of the clear and is their offense fixed? The defense may not be the total test, but it could be a shootout, because even if the defense allows them some soft spots, you still have to keep up with Josh Allen and his crew and James Cook and his crew. I do trust the Eagles defense to be able to slow even if they can't stop the Bills, but I'm very curious if the Bills run defense challenges will be enough to open up the run game for Philly and make it a balanced offense.
Yeah, and a game before the season, right? Very much, and still could be a Super Bowl preview, I think. But 2 teams that, while they're in the playoffs, are still, I think, somewhat disappointing relative to maybe the overall ceiling that we thought they could have, right? The Bills have been winning these games kind of same as the Eagles for the most part, but not particularly impressively. It's really the Bills don't really have a great defense, and Josh Allen has been carrying him. And for the Eagles, it's kind of been the opposite, where the defense has been carrying the offense, and Jalen Hurts hasn't really been performing to the level that we've seen, certainly for him. This is an interesting game. Bills opened about a 2.5-point favorite. This is down to Bills -1, even pick 'em at some books, but the public is on the Bills so far in the early going, and backing them about a 2-1, 2.5-1 clip in terms of ticket count. So public backing the Bills. The line has gone the other way a bit. A big one for this one is just injuries as well. The Bills kind of is another of that CVS receipts of injury list, where seemingly, as we put up on the screen there, just Josh Allen limited, Joey Bosa didn't practice, both tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox didn't practice. And then for the Eagles on the other side, potentially getting Jalen Carter back is big. I think Nakobe Dean unlikely to play. We're not sure about Lane Johnson. And kind of this is also the time in the year where, much like college football bowl season, you also kind of have to handicap motivation as well as when the game is being played. And for the Eagles, it's a game that certainly they need to win every game. Every team will tell you that. but they also can't get that number one seed, whereas the Bills can. And so if there's any, potential, right, the game's going on and Saquon twists an ankle, you could see, or anything happens, you could see the Eagles just shut down starters, right? Whereas the Bills, that's not going to happen. They need this game. They need it for the division. They need it for the number one seed. The Eagles are kind of locked in. So it's just another murkiness to the handicap of the games. Is you also have to see kind of how important is each game really to these team. And for the Bills, they just have more motivation than the Eagles do. Obviously, the Eagles want it as a notch on their belt. They beat the Bills. This is a big time playoff team they might see down the road, but this is a game the Bills absolutely have to have, whereas the Eagles, it's more of a nice to have.
Yeah, the Eagles, as it stands now, are the 3 seed in the NFC. Chicago's ahead of them at 11-4. Chicago doesn't play until Sunday night. There is a world in which the Eagles can get to the 2 seed. But they are in all likelihood the 3 seed. I'm checking my notes here. The Eagles cannot get to number 1. Okay, so that's not in play. Now, the 2 seed would be nice, but really at this point, you're hunting matchups. If you get up to the 2, you get the Rams coming to town again. If you sit at the 3, then, well, you're getting the Rams right now. I beg your pardon. Yeah, the Niners. So, look, teams try to play this matchup game all the time. I think with 2 weeks at it, it's a little bit early to do that. You want to win this game if you're the Eagles. The 2 seed is still certainly a possibility, and it wouldn't be bad to have that. As for the injuries there with the Bills, Kincaid and Knox were both on the injury list last year. I'm a little bit more concerned about Josh Allen. He says he's fine. He didn't practice. They moved everything up this week with Christmas, so they were going to be on the field on Tuesday. He was not on the field on Tuesday. When he limped off the field late in the second quarter this past Sunday, I wondered if he was going to be back. But they said x-rays were negative and he finished the game. He didn't move that well in the second half. When he was asked this week, were you limited when you were back on the field week 16 in the second half? And he said, not really, which wasn't really that convincing. This is a good one. This is like one of those, I would say it's one of the rare, really good games this week. There's only a handful of them, and this is certainly one of them. And it's tied into the Bears, as mentioned. Let's get to them on Sunday night. The Bears are 11-4. The Niners are 11-4. This is a great game. It's the 2 seed in the NFC against the 5 seed in the NFC. Both of these teams have already clinched playoff spots. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and Melissa Stark on the call for NBC. The Niners will win the West and the number 1 seed if they win out. However, they have to beat the Bears and the Seahawks to do that. The teams right now seeded 2 and 1 in the NFC. If the Bears win this game, well, let's back up. If the Packers lose on Saturday to the Ravens, that means the Bears can win this game and win the NFC North. To me, this game comes down to the takeaways. Bears give up a lot of yards. They lead the league in points off turnovers and takeaways. And can the San Francisco run defense, and we listed all the guys out for Robert Saleh. They cannot rush the passer. But it surprised me today, Jori, when I looked up the 49ers run defense stats. They are the number 8 run defense in the NFL, as banged up as they are. So can the 49ers, to me, this is the key here, stop what Ben Johnson's got cooking on the ground?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is often not just a matter of physical skill and talent against Ben Johnson. It's really a matching of the minds as well. And Ben Johnson really has so much deception he integrates. For me, what's interesting is actually the other side of the ball defensively, because we're seeing Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy just threw 5 touchdowns, first 49ers quarterback to throw 5 touchdowns in a game in 30 years. And he was going against the Colts, who were the 32nd team in pass rush win rate, according to ESPN. They were absolute worst in the league. Well, who's the second worst team in terms of rushing the passer in the league? That would be the Chicago Bears. And so I kind of look at this and I'm like, yes, I trust that Chicago offense to do something. Yes, the San Francisco defense is probably the top reason when I talk to people around the league that they think there might not be enough for the Niners to go all the way in the playoffs. They think it would be a matter of just too many injuries on defense, not enough talent because of that injury element. But when it comes down to it, I think I'm more concerned that the Bears defense is just not going to be able to stop and not necessarily slow San Francisco, because it will be the same type of clean pockets, ability to keep the timing and the rhythm that we've seen from Brock Purdy in his 6-1 start so far. So it'll be interesting. I know that they call Caleb Williams Iceman. He's got the ice in his veins. This is not going to be a home game. This is not going to be Malik Willis last week. Yes, it was an awesome win that they had against the Packers. It was also against the backup quarterback, even though it was one of the better backup quarterbacks. So I do think the Bears are building something. I do think they have momentum. I don't know that the Niners are going to be the best matchup for them.
Yeah, I think my preseason pick of Brock Purdy to win the MVP, I think that ship has sailed, although at least it was one good week. So I can point to that he had that for 5 touchdowns.
Were you running around the house Monday night saying, "I told you so"?
No. As soon as he got injured, I think that one was gone.
Okay.
But
fair.
49ers opened a 3-point favorite. This is still a 3-point favorite for the Niners. Good two-way action. As Jori discussed with the defense, this total has gone up from 50.5 of the opener to 52.5. And the Bears are still kind of they're slowly moving up the advanced metrics. They're 16th overall in DVOA, but now with weighted DVOA, which is basically how you've played more recently, they're up to 11th. The 49ers 9th overall, up to 6th in weighted DVOA. So 2 teams playing really well right now. 2 teams that potentially could get the number 1 seed. Both potentially as well could win their divisions. It's going to be a really important game regardless for both teams. I do think, Andrew, I believe the Bears win the NFC North if the Packers lose that game. But again, in terms of motivation,
right. It's not. No, you're totally right. I misread my notes. It's not they need one and then the other. If you're correct, the Packers lose, the Bears win the division. Thanks for correcting me.
Right. Packers need to win out. Bears would need to lose out. But right. Either way, if the Packers lose, the Bears still want the number 1 seed. So both teams don't really have to worry about motivation in terms of this game. And for the Bears, that defense, I think, has really hid behind the offense's ability to run the ball, right? Dominate time of possession, somewhat keep the defense sometimes off the field, even though that was the opposite against Green Bay this past weekend. But their D is 28th in opponent yards per play on defense. So they're giving up a lot of yards per play, but they have a league high 31 turnovers, including a NFL best plus 21 turnover differential, right? So usually what we see not sustainable, the Bears keep doing it week after week. Last week, obviously, of the onside kick. I think the Packers played about as good a game and conservative a game. Malik Willis played really, really well coming in. They did basically everything they need to do except recover an onside kick, which whatever it had 92% chance, I think, of it, or 88, a very high percentage. And the Bears just keep doing this kind of week after week. The Niners, that same thing. I think a good team, a lot of injuries. Kyle Shanahan, as that offensive play caller, always gives defenses fits. And it's pretty impressive that 49ers had a win total of 10.5 before this season. I think a lot of people before the season said, hey, that seems pretty high for a team that has lost some people, all that. They already clinched that, obviously, with their 11th win, still with 2 games to go. And obviously, Fred Warner out, Nick Bosa out, Brandon Ayuk. We're not really sure what's happened, but hasn't been playing. So they've had a ton of injuries, still have kind of won those games. And for them to not only surpass that win total, but also to have a shot at the number 1 seed, I think just shows Kyle Shanahan, again, really good coach. He has not gotten over the hump in terms of the Super Bowl, but his teams kind of season after season, and they've had bad injury luck seemingly every year. They just are always right there. And again, this year, they're right in the mix.
Yeah, and they are 4-0 in primetime this year. They have won 5 consecutive games overall. The thing that I did not realize, we talked about their pass rush, and they have no pass rush. They have the second fewest interceptions in the NFL. So all eyes on the Jets. The Jets have that many, 0 interceptions. the next worst team, the 49ers, they have 6. Also, something I did not know, and I'm going to credit TikTok here. By the way, I am on TikTok if you want to go find me. It's Andrew Siciliano. When Caleb
I am not on TikTok.
Ben,
I just want to say that was not a sentence I thought we'd be going through in this podcast. Was Andrew saying he was going to credit
You didn't
TikTok
know I was on
for
TikTok?
something, so
Really?
I didn't. I was unaware. I'm not on it
guys.
though. That's why. So
okay. There's some great videos there about ancient aliens, but that's a whole other show. So when Caleb Williams threw the touchdown last week, and he's done this celebration before, did you see him do this? For those who are not watching,
it's a Trae Young,
who are only, you're right. But do you know what this is? So if you're only listening, I'm my arms across my chest, and my hands are kind of rubbing my shoulders. Do you know what this means? No, nobody.
It's like a hug for yourself.
This is sign language for bears.
What are the chances he knew that?
That's what I guarantee you he knows that. You don't think he knows? You think he's just rubbing his shoulders for the warmth?
I thought he was doing the Trae Young, like ice cold, I'm ice cold. That's what I
don't know. You think? I don't know the Trae Young celebration.
It does seem like too much of a coincidence. I will give you that.
You think it's a coincidence that Caleb Williams is doing this, which is the international sign language sign for bears?
No, that's why I'm saying
Jori?
I think you're right. I'm just saying I viewed it as the Trae Young.
He could know his Trae Young's thing, also know sign language, be like, wow, that's great. I can get 2 and 1. I don't think it has to be an either or here.
Yeah, see, we got it up on the screen here. You gotta go up to your shoulders. That's bears. I don't know.
Or he's just really cold and he got lucky. I mean, that's also possible.
Or he's freezing. There's no other NFL quarterback that is doing a celebration in sign language for the team mascot. I guarantee you that. And if Caleb stumbled upon it accidentally, I don't care. I tip my cap to him. All right, we got 2 games down. We got 3 more to go. Man, I'm all over the map today. Coming up next, we have a really good game Saturday evening, and it could be a playoff preview, and it's at SoFi. We're going to go to L.A. to look at the Chargers and the Texans. Coming up next on Inside Coverage. It's Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. Andrew Siciliano, Jori Epstein, and Ben Fawkes. Happy holidays to you and yours. These are the 5 games that mean something to us here. Week 17, we skip the Christmas games. We're not anti-Christmas games. At least I'm not. It's just those games aren't that exciting. I still recommend you watch them. Netflix, Prime. Frank is so anti-Christmas games. Ben, did you hear the show on Tuesday?
I didn't, but I saw in the group chat, it seemed like he was going off, already had gone off, or had gone off a little bit and was ready to finish his segment the next day. Yeah, he really had a lot to get into.
I mean, it was straight Ebenezer Scrooge. I guess I'm Tiny Tim then in all this, but it was straight Ebenezer Scrooge and Mr. Grinch. And I mean, it was like veins were popping from his neck. Either way, I hope Frank is having a very merry and happy and calm Christmas, because Frank, we love you. Let's get to the game on Saturday, at least the late game on Saturday. This one is at SoFi. It's on NFL Network. It is the 7 seed Houston Texans on the road against the right now 5 seed and 11-4 LA Chargers, with friends of the program, Rich Eisen, Kurt Warner, Jamie Erdahl, and Megan O'Leary on the call. This is a rematch of the wild card game from last year. The Texans beat the Chargers. They picked off Justin Herbert 4 times. The Chargers are in the playoffs in back-to-back seasons for the first time since Phillip Rivers was their quarterback in 2009, to bring it full circle. The Texans clinch with a win in this one, or they could also get in if the Colts lose to the Jaguars on Sunday. The Texans would be eliminated from the AFC South race with a loss and a Jacksonville win for now. Houston is 0-3 out of the gate this year, and now they're in the postseason. No team has ever made the playoffs twice at 0-3 other than the Houston Texans. They did it back in 2018 with Deshaun Watson. They lost to the Rams, the Bucks, and the Jags right out of the gate. and they have gone 10-2 since. And all 5 of their losses have been one-possession games to teams that are still in playoff contention. So the Texans, I know we're pumping up the Jaguars, as well we should. The Texans are the team, to me, that, like Jacksonville, nobody wants to play. And the idea that we have 2 of those teams in the AFC out of the South is something that I don't think any of us could have foreseen back in August. Jori, this game comes down to me, the Houston pass rush against whatever is left, and we're taping this on Wednesday evening, of the Chargers offensive line. The Chargers have had 21 unique offensive line combinations this year, play at least 5 snaps. That is by far the most in the NFL. That is 3 more than any other team. I don't know how they piece together an O-line every week, and I honestly fear for Justin Herbert's safety this week facing D'Amico Ryans and the Texans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that the Houston defense versus the Chargers protection is going to be the number one question we have here. Justin Herbert has been pressured on 43.7% of his dropbacks this season, which is highest of his career and highest of any quarterback in the NFL this season. Perhaps unsurprisingly, that's because his team has the worst pass block win rate in the entire league at 53%, according to ESPN, and the second worst run block win rate at 69%. So just for some context here, because I know these numbers can feel like a lot, they are only succeeding on basically holding off defensive linemen 53% of the time, compared to the best offensive line, the Bears, who are able to pass block for Caleb Williams 74% of the time. So near 21% of the time more is Caleb Williams getting that protection compared to Justin Herbert. Now, we've seen Justin Herbert still have some success despite it, but he's really going to have to fight through it, because even though statistically the Houston pass rush has mixed numbers, they're 20th, their run stopping is closer to 6th. We know that they're feisty on the back end. They're going to find a way. And so I think that really I don't trust either of these teams' offensive lines, but particularly concerned about Justin Herbert's protection against a great Houston defense that, as you said, is rounding into form. And not only would they be, I think you said, the 3rd team since 1990 to make it to the postseason after starting 0-3, but it's only happened 5 times since 1990. So this is not a common occurrence in the last 35 years.
Yeah, and a really weird game, I guess, with 2 teams that are kind of like mirror images of each other. And as I kept looking at this game and then more and more going into it, right, you have this elite quarterback, offensive lines that have been shaky. Obviously, I think the Chargers at full health with their tackles who are injured would be a better offensive line. You have 2 really good defenses. Houston allows the fewest amount of yards per game on defense. The Chargers, the 3rd fewest. And you both kind of have a running game that hasn't been as good as you would like, and 1 elite receiver. The Texans have Nico Collins, and the Chargers have Ladd McConkey in the slot or out wide. But it just kind of comes down to which one can execute a little better, because ultimately they're kind of going to try and do similar things. And the Chargers have been playing well. I think it's hard to believe this. They've been a quieter 11-4 team. I mean, this is a team that has won 7 of 8 games. They won their last 3 games outright as an underdog against the Eagles, at the Chiefs, and at the Cowboys. So they've just kind of been rolling along. Justin Herbert has been doing his thing despite the fact his left hand's still injured, still banged up. So they're kind of just 2 mirror images of themselves. And the Texans have been up now. They're up to 5th in DVOA and weighted DVOA as well, with a number 2 defense, but the 21st ranked offense, and kind of the same thing with the Chargers. I think for the Texans, a big question is, was that just an aberration last week and they were looking ahead against the Raiders, or is that a sign of something more? Because it's a little troubling to give up 315 yards and I think 5.9 yards per play to the Raiders, whereas by comparison, they gave up 274 and 4.3 yards per play against the Chiefs a few weeks ago. So was that just something happened, they were looking ahead, or is that kind of a potential issue with the defense? I tend to think they're probably just looking ahead, but the total in this game also 39.5. So odds makers expecting a low scoring, close game between 2 teams. I would probably lean the Texans just because of that, having those offensive line issues for the Chargers. But this is going to be a really close game between 2 teams probably headed to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's CJ Stroud coming back to Southern California. He grew up actually right down the street from where our producer Madison grew up. He played in LA week 1 when the Texans came to town and lost to the Rams, and now he's coming back here at Christmas, week 17. What's nuts here is that both of these teams have the possibility, and some of them are long shots, to be the 1, the 2, the 3, the 5, the 6, or the 7. Neither of these teams can be the 4 seed, but the 1, the 2, the 3, the 5, the 6, or the 7. If the Broncos win on Christmas and they face Chris Oladokun and the Chiefs, then a Charger loss in this game would give Denver the division. But if the Chargers win out here, so regardless of what Denver does on Christmas, if the Chargers win out and they play week 18, the Chargers and the Broncos, the Chargers are going to win the division. They have the head-to-head. They beat them back in September. So as much as we go, they have no offensive line, and they don't, everyone's hurt. The Chargers win this game, they get an AFC West title game in week 18, which is fun for everybody. But if Denver wins on Christmas, then the pressure is certainly on, one way or the other, for the Chargers to win this game. All right, let's get to the Sunday night game here. It's the Jaguars and the Colts. Actually, it's not Sunday night, I beg your pardon. This is a 1 o'clock Eastern time game. I'm sorry, on Sunday. Jaguars and Colts, 11-4 against 8-7. This is the 3 seed in the AFC against the 8 seed in the AFC. Right now, the Colts are not in it, and really, it's a long shot. I'll explain that to you in a second. Joe Davis, Greg Olson, and Pam Oliver on the call. The Jaguars will win the AFC South if they win out at Indy and then home for Tennessee. They can win the division this week with a victory over the Colts and a Chargers win over the Texans on Saturday night, the game we just talked about. So if the Chargers win and the Texans lose, the Jaguars know that they're taking the field at 1 o'clock on Sunday with the ability to win the division right then and there. And the Jaguars still have a shot also at the number 1 seed. Guys, I don't know that we are really talking enough about the kind of role, Jori, that the Jaguars are on. They've won 6 straight. Houston, by the way, has won 7. That's the longest streak right now. And in that 6-game winning streak, Jori, the Jaguars are plus 113 in point differential. They're not just beating people, they're blowing the doors off of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy what the Jaguars have done and how quickly they've risen. It's a reason why Liam Cohen is maybe not the only contestant for Coach of the Year, but he's certainly one of the very reasonable ones and one of the ones who's going to get attention. I mean, this was a team that went from 26th in points scored last year to 7th this year and 27th in scoring defense last year to 10th. So bottom of the pack to really top 10 in both categories, one of which is that they are the best run defense in the league right now, and they're going up against Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. We saw that the 49ers this past week were able to really say, hey, if we stop Jonathan Taylor, Phillip Rivers has a little bit of success, you're probably not going to beat us, and that was a successful formula. And if the Jaguars try and do something similar, they should be able to win. It's not the only formula they could use to win, but I do think it'll work. Shane Steichen said that this will be a Phillip Rivers game yet again. There was some belief around the league, not necessarily by everyone, but even Troy Aikman on the broadcast Monday night was like, oh yeah, I guess you go to Riley Leonard, their 6th-round rookie now, because you want to see what he has. You're basically out of the playoffs. You could be actually out of the playoffs based off the results of the other games of the weekend right before. But when Colts head coach Shane Steichen was asked about this, he said, no, Phillip is playing. We still have a chance. He's the quarterback who will allow us to win. And while there might be, or give us the best chance to win, I should say, and while there might be a chance that last minute they find out there's no playoff relevance for this game, he said at that point, for a rookie, it wouldn't be fair that he would not have taken first team snaps all week. So they are going to run with Phillip Rivers. But as we mentioned when we were doing our Bears preview, this Colts team is the worst pass rush win rate team in the entire league. And now they're going against Trevor Lawrence, who is playing some of the best ball of his career. I think we all saw what the Jaguars did against the Broncos and how they showed everyone that they may be a small market team, depending what coach you ask, but they are not small in terms of the threat they pose. So I think that this is going to be another exciting game because people love watching Phillip Rivers play, and it's going to be another chance for the Jaguars to show what they're made of right now.
Yeah, and a Jaguars team that's been really good to bettors as well. Those 6 games they've won, they've also covered the spread in all those games, including 3 as an underdog against the Chargers, the Colts, and at the Broncos. And it's a very, obviously, teams kind of going in opposite directions. The Colts have lost 5 straight. On Monday night, they gave up 440 yards, 6.7 yards per play, and kind of a mind-boggling 28 first downs to the 49ers. So obviously not what you want on the defensive side there. Jaguars up to 6th in DVOA, 4th in weighted DVOA, so playing even better more recently. They've just been an odd team. It's hard to kind of get a fix on them because earlier in the season, I think one of those national games, right, the spotlight, they went to London, where they go all the time, right? So you figure they have an advantage, and they got blown off the field 35-7 against the Rams. So that was one where it's like, okay, now they're taking on better competition. Let's see how they do. They kind of had a no-show. And then in some of these games as well, you know, they blew that 29-10 fourth quarter lead against the Davis Mills-led Texans. Like, part of the reason the Texans are in the playoff race because they won that game without CJ Stroud. They barely beat the Cardinals in overtime after their defense blew a lead. They barely beat the Raiders because of a 2-point conversion in overtime. So they've had all these games where they have quite just done enough to win. But then recently they go into Denver and play really, really well and kind of dominate the Broncos team. So it's tough to know exactly what you're getting. They certainly seem like they're on the upswing. It's also a little bit what we've seen, 2 teams who kind of chose different points, I guess, to go all in, right? It seems like forever ago, and we've forgotten about it, but there's a Jaguars team that traded up. They don't have their first round pick because they traded up for Travis Hunter, who has basically done nothing for most of the season. And the Colts obviously thought at that point they were whatever they were, 7-1, 8-1, traded 2 firsts for Sauce Gardner, who also got hurt. Now the Colts look like they're going to miss the playoffs. They're not even sure about their QB position. Again, no one is saying, hey, you should have known that Daniel Jones was going to hurt his Achilles, but just kind of interesting. 2 teams that went all in, or all in to a certain extent, but now we're going to have very different paths towards the postseason. The Jaguars offense hasn't been very good. But again, like the Bears, defense has forced 28 turnovers. And that's second most to the Bears, which is 31. So living off turnovers a bit. Good defense, not as good offense, but they've been playing better recently. I think this is one of the Jaguars, if they are that team, blow out the Colts. The Phillip Rivers train goes off the tracks a little bit in week 3.
But do we agree? Because Jori and I have already talked about this. Ben, you do enjoy the trip on that train, do you not? Like, it's fun to get on that choo-choo, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, against the Seahawks, I don't think anyone said they were a 14-point underdog, and they could have and or should have won that game. I mean, and he put up a lot of points on Monday night. It wasn't it wasn't his fault. So, no, he's done far better than I think anyone could have imagined.
Absolutely. It's like the Hallmark or Lifetime movie that we all needed for the holidays, except this one isn't like a made-for-TV contrived Chiefs or Bills one. It's actually, it's real life. There is still a scenario for the Colts to get in. It is far-fetched. By the way, they did open the window for Anthony Richardson to come back today. The 21-day window is open. I mean, I don't know that it means anything. He's not ready to truly play again. So here's the convoluted scenario. First of all, if the Texans win Saturday, they're out. They're gone. But let's say that the Chargers beat the Texans. Here's what has to happen. The Colts have to win out. They have to win their final 2 games. All right. They have this one, and then next week they're at Houston. Okay. So that means the Texans would lose both. Then Indianapolis and Houston will have split the head-to-head. They will have the same division record and the same conference record and the same record in common games. And then at that point, it would come down to strength of victory. The Texans are, and all the numbers have been run, they are unable to clinch the strength of victory tiebreaker in week 17. So, Next Gen Stats for the league says that the Colts have a 4% chance of making the playoffs. But again, they have to win out, have the Texans lose out, and then they have to clinch the strength of victory tiebreaker. Now, if all that happens, that would be the greatest ending to the Phillip Rivers story of all time. Like, Phillip Rivers gets in the playoffs on a strength of victory tiebreaker. And at that point, honestly, I want to end the movie. Like at the end of Major League, the greatest sports movie of all time. Actually, it's one of the top 5 films of all time, period, like On the Waterfront. Truly, it's got to be up there. They make the playoffs, and they don't show you the postseason because it's not important. The Indians made the playoffs. Like, I feel if the Texans, or rather if the Colts get in, they should just end the movie right now. And if I'm Phillip, I tap out and I go home.
A lot of movie talk on today's show.
I didn't do it.
I would
to
look
make you feel
forward
uncomfortable.
to wagering against Phillip Rivers in that first round of the playoffs, especially if it's a cold outdoor game.
Jori, have you seen Major League?
When I talk, no, when I talk to people around the league about Phillip Rivers, and we're kind of like, this is working. It doesn't look pretty, but it's working. They're like, yeah, but that's kind of how it was when he was playing the last couple of years anyway. You'd be like, how did that get completed? Right. But then it would. So it's not even actually that different of a style than he had 5 years ago.
It's not. He's throwing hot air balloons. I've talked to people around the league who were convinced he was going to pop a calf in the first game, not rooting for it. Like, they don't want to see him injured. But it's like, this guy's 44. He hasn't actually been chased by anyone in 5 years. So, like, this is an injury. This is a muscle pull waiting to happen. It has not happened yet. We're grateful for that. Also grateful that we have a couple more games to discuss. Coming up, you know what? Let's do 6 games. That huge game in Carolina and a game that on paper appears meaningless in Vegas. Alas, it is not meaningless. Those are next on Inside Coverage. Inside Coverage on Yahoo. Andrew Siciliano, Jori Epstein, and Ben Fawkes. Asked you guys real quick, if I had told you in August that the game week 17 in Charlotte, North Carolina, between the Seahawks and the Panthers would feature 2 ascending teams primed for the postseason, Jori, would you have believed it?
These teams are definitely both ahead of schedule, so I would probably not have expected them both to be on this trajectory.
Yeah, I would have believed the Seahawks, not the Panthers. Ben?
I think I would have believed the Seahawks only because there wasn't that much evidence of how Bryce Young had looked. And so you'd think over the course of the season, could he have put it together? Whereas the Seahawks, you figure Mike McDonald, good defense. And we saw it at least for a full year with Sam Darnold. So if Sam Darnold put it together, then maybe they'd be towards the playoffs.
Hey, I saw the Panthers in person this week, this summer, rather. Was there for one of their training camp practices, saw them at a preseason game live, and they were all talking in Carolina, oh, no, the defense is going to be so much better this year. I'm like, okay, sure. Don't see it. And it isn't, obviously, championship caliber here. I just didn't think they'd win that many games. Who has the most game-winning drives since 2023? Anybody? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold. Nope. Bryce Young. Bryce Young has the most game-winning drives.
That's a good one, Andrew.
Since the start of 2023. There's a good one. And this game is a good one as well. This game is 1 o'clock on Sunday. It is the 12-3 Seattle Seahawks, the 1 seed, as we sit here on Wednesday night in the NFC, against the 4 seed, the leader in the NFC South, the 8-7 Panthers. The Seahawks have not been the 1 seed since 2014. These teams are both coming off huge divisional games last week in which they moved into first. Seattle has already clinched. They can win the NFC West, but they're not going to know until Monday night. They would need the Falcons to beat the Rams to clinch. Carolina can win the NFC South if they win this game and if the Buccaneers lose to the Dolphins. Now, go back to the original question to set this up. I have on my notes in big letters, capital letters, are the Panthers good? I mean, they have a winning record. They've beaten the Seahawks. Rather, I'm sorry, they beat the Packers and they beat the Rams. Those are
Rams,
two fantastic victories. Yep, one on the road and one at home. But the Panthers have a negative 50 point differential. Negative 50. The Jaguars are plus 113 just in their last 6 games. The Panthers are negative 50 for the season. That is the worst by any team that's currently at 500 or better. And it would be the 3rd worst point differential for a division winner in the history of the National Football League. Denver in 2011 was 81 points under, but the Broncos won a playoff game. The Seahawks in 2010 were 97 points under. That team, however, won a playoff game. Jori, call me crazy if you want to. I actually think Carolina's going to win this game.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's hard to find teams in this league who beat the Rams and then turn around, albeit with the bye week in between, and lose to the Saints. And kudos to the Saints for what they're building. They have really put something together the last few weeks, but this is a team that just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not really about Bryce Young in particular, though he has taken strides. They're 11th in rushing yards. They're 13th in scoring defense. And it's funny you say, Andrew, that over the summer people thought the defense was going to be better there, because I actually felt kind of around draft time that there was disappointment in that building, because there were a lot of people who thought, hey, we're going to get a defensive player in the first round. And then, of course, they take Ted McMillan, which has looked like a good pick, but it wasn't a defensive help. And so to have the defensive improvement that they've had without spending a first-round pick on the defense, and again, this is a defense that's traded away guys like Brian Burns in recent years, who's still a really good player for the Giants. So, I mean, I think the key to this game is what kind of pressure can the Panthers get on Darnold, who, by the way, played for them a few years ago. Not a whole lot of roster similarity necessarily, but he was with the Panthers after the Jets on his way to eventually becoming a 2-time Pro Bowl quarterback with the Vikings and then the Seahawks. And when I talk to people, they say the question will be, can you get pressure up the middle? Teams that get pressure up the middle, that disguise, and then kind of drop out are hard for Darnold to read through. That's kind of what you look at when you say, when is he having those turnover-prone games? When is he having cleaner games? Change up the looks, force him to adapt, try to read it out post-snap, and that's what people around the league who I talk to say they expect to be the biggest issue for Darnold and the most effective way to slow down the Seahawks.
And with two teams, I think always, as I come in with the gambling impact, right, this is a game with probably a bigger line than you might imagine, with the Panthers, right, potentially winning division. Seahawks opened a 7.5 point favorite down to 7, but still, that's basically saying on a neutral field, the Seahawks are 8.5, 9 points better maybe than the Panthers. So that's a top 5 rating for the Seahawks and probably a 20 to 25, somewhere in there for the Panthers. And kind of the advanced stats also agree. Seahawks number 2 in DVOA, Carolina 24th. So the Seahawks have just been a much better team kind of in all facets. I thought one interesting thing Aaron Schatz had for FTN Fantasy, Seahawks special teams is actually one of the best units he's ever tracked, going all the way back to 1978. So very good defense. The offense is 3rd in yards per play. Special teams really good. You just don't really know, like we say, what we're getting with the Panthers. They have 8 all of their wins as an underdog this season, which is something that just doesn't happen. I think it's tied for the most ever in the Super Bowl era. And one of my favorite stats, which won't matter this week, but the Panthers haven't won a game as a favorite in over 4 years, since 2021. They're also not favored very often, but there's good reason for that. And I think it's just because overall the team just isn't very good. They've hung around in some games. I think that Rams game was a perfect example where I think the Rams at some point felt like, hey, we're scoring almost every time. They had a turnover here. They missed a field goal. Like, they thought they were going to put that game away. And then all of a sudden the Panthers were in the game in the 4th quarter and winning it. But you're just not really sure what you're going to get from the Panthers. One week they seem great, and then next week, like Jori said, they lose to the Saints. So is this the week they look good, or is this the week they look not as good against an elite opponent? And also, I think what's interesting, the Seahawks coming off that Thursday night game, they obviously have the rest advantage. The Panthers have the travel advantage because obviously they played at home. They're staying at home. But the Seahawks this season, 5-0 straight up heading to the East Coast, including 4-1 against the spread. And as we show there on the screen, they're also 10-5 against the number over the course of the season. So they've been great to bettors, and they've also been good going east, I think, under Mike Macdonald's tenure. So not as big an advantage. Usually sometimes there's that west to east. The Seahawks have played well in those spots this season. This will be another one where, again, odds makers expecting the Seahawks to win. And you just don't know what you're going to get from the Panthers. So it's a little hard to know. One important injury potentially for the Panthers, that guard Robert Hunt, who has been out, Pro Bowl player, activated his practice window. So if he plays, that's obviously a big boost against a very good Seahawks defensive line.
I was looking down here, Ben, and you stole my thunder, although we're thinking alike. You mentioned the road games. It's absurd how much this team has traveled. They've lost one road game this year. It was their only West Coast road game. They lost at LA. They still have to go to San Francisco. They won at Arizona. But here are their East Coast trips so far. Week 2, they went to Pittsburgh and they won. Then they went to Jacksonville in week 6 and they won. They went to Washington week 9 and they won. They went to Tennessee Central Time Zone, but we'll give it to them there week 12 and they won. And so now they're coming back again. Like, all this team has done is get on a plane. I realize they live in Seattle, right? They have the most travel miles week in, week out, year in, year out of any team of the NFL. That's what they sign up for there with that franchise all the way up there. But this is absurd how much they've had to travel this year to the East Coast. It's just the way that the divisions align and who's playing whom. But they have been great. I still think the Panthers are going to win. I don't know why. This is one where I'm going on my gut. Yet, Seattle has the number 5 total defense and the number 2 scoring defense. They're playing really, really, really well. Seattle can't run the ball. Can they stop Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard? That remains to be seen. This is a fantastic game. And as I had mentioned earlier, it is not a game that any of us circled as fantastic all the way back in August. But that is why they play the games. And now, because we've given you 5, we're going to give you a bonus game. This game on paper, the 2-13 Giants taking on the 2-13 Raiders Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's one of only 2 games Sunday in the 4 o'clock window. On paper is awful. There are other words to describe it. I'm just going to say it's awful. But it might be one of the more meaningful games of the week, because as we sit here on Christmas Eve, the Giants are currently holding the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft, which is in Pittsburgh, by the way. And the Raiders are holding the number 2 overall pick. Again, they're both 2-13. The loser of this game will move to number 1 overall. Logic dictates the Giants don't need a quarterback, assuming they're comfortable, whomever is in charge moving forward to the Jackson Dart. The Raiders do need a quarterback. It would behoove the Raiders to lose this game. The Raiders, coincidence or not, put Brock Bowers and others on injured reserve today. Thank you very much. Waiting in the wings, the Cleveland Browns, who get the Steelers this week. Now, the Browns have beaten the Steelers 3 consecutive in Cleveland. They have split with the Steelers 5 of the last 6 years. The Browns have beaten the Steelers with a rookie quarterback in this building of late, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, back in 2023. They're going to start another rookie quarterback this week. Somebody is going to win the game between the Giants and the Raiders, Jori. And when that happens, the Browns move up. That is, if they lose, they might win. But if they were to lose to the Steelers, the Browns move up to number 2, which is where they were a year ago. And then it goes to week 18. The Giants get the Cowboys. The Raiders get Chris Oladokun, at least for now, and the Chiefs. And if they were, either one of those teams were to win that game, well, the team that wins this week, you would then want to lose next week. Anyway, this game is important to me and others. Jori, what say you?
Yeah, this is a really interesting game because obviously there's the whole question in sports of, do you tank? Do you try and get that higher draft pick? How much is that valued? Particularly when the Giants already don't have their head coach, but their GM seems like he's going to be safe in Joe Shane, especially with the Mara family going through some health challenges. And so then you have a GM who can create some stability. And in Cleveland too, and I know you're there more than we are, Andrew, but it seems challenging for Kevin Stefanski to justify being the head coach next year. Great guy, would be happy for him if he is, but it seems like that's a hard argument to make. And it seems less challenging to justify general manager Andrew Berry, who had a lot of other draft picks that the team hit on this year, staying in course. And so if you have GMs who might say, well, we want the draft pick for next year, and head coach instability, what comes into that? All that said, when I talk to coaches and players, they're like, we don't want to lose this game. These coaches and players are still putting on film their resumes for next year. All of these coaching staffs, what they do this week is going to influence their ability to get a job for next year. So I put this context to say that while this is a draft relevant game, and we do look at it and see why a front office might want a certain outcome, it is not realistic when you're trying to build a culture among players, particularly among young players, and both teams have young quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks starting for them. It's not realistic to just try and throw this game or even say, hey, I'm not going to play this. Like if the Giants don't play Jackson Dart this week, we should all have a lot of questions about the organization, and it will set them back much longer than if they win this game. That said, yes, I think the Giants feel good about Jackson Dart. It'll be a great chance for him to try and bounce back, because you say, sorry, not the Raiders don't have a rookie quarterback. I was talking about the Browns and their playoff implications. But I think when you look at this and you say Jackson Dart had his worst career game against the Minnesota Vikings last year, he really struggled to understand what Brian Flores was doing. And so now you get into this question of, can he rebound against the Raiders? And really the number one issue in this game is going for the Giants is going to be Max Crosby. When I talk to people around the league, they say that he is the most difficult defender for them to game plan against. Even the coaches who are telling me Myles Garrett's a better player, but Max Crosby, the way they have to game plan for him is different than the way they have to game plan for Myles Garrett. And so you kind of look at this, you look at how slippery he is, how you want to protect against him. And that's really what the Giants are going to be paying attention to this week as they try and get Jackson Dart back on track.
And you saw Max Crosby against the Texans. I mean, you would have thought they were playing in the Super Bowl by the effort. Mm-hmm. And that's him every game. It's not like it's any different. I wouldn't say the Giants' offensive line has covered itself in glory this year either, so it's going to be a tall task for them. This game opened with the Giants as a 1-point favorite, flipped on Wednesday to the Raiders as a 1 or 1.5 point favorite, and then post the Brock Bowers to IR and Jeremy Chin to IR news has now flipped back again to the Giants as a 1-point favorite. Pick them at some books. There's a lot going on, certainly. I think with Jackson Dart as well, you're kind of left as the Giants with, I believe they ran the ball 15 straight times to start that Giants-Vikings game. And yes, I was one of the few people who suffered through watching that game. Is that because Jackson Dart couldn't read the Brian Flores defense? Or is it because, and they didn't trust him to do that? Or did they trust him not to run and have potentially a sixth concussion or checked out for a concussion? And therefore kind of, are you playing Jackson Dart with the kid gloves on, or was that just a Brian Flores defense and you said, hey, we're going to keep it simple and try and, keep up his confidence? Because that to me is also a question. What are you trying to figure out with Jackson Dart? Is he the guy? Do you want to let him run as well? And to that point, do you want to win this game? Giants fans will tell you they were in this position last year, and then Drew Lock had a career game against the Colts, and all of a sudden they didn't have the number 1 pick. I believe they dropped to 3 or 4. And so they kind of had this situation last year. They did what they did. They won the game. Whether or not they're better or worse off as a franchise is a question for another day, but they've kind of been here before. It is that we talk about the motivation for those other teams, right? Bears, 49ers, where both teams want to win. Maybe it's one game where one team wants to win, the other team doesn't care as much. This is a game where, we're not really sure exactly what both teams are thinking. And for the Raiders, obviously Pete Carroll, he's coaching for his job. So you'd think he wants to win. And Mike Kafka is the interim head coach. Obviously, you think he wants to win as well. So it's that front office versus the players versus head coaches who may or may not be there next year. It's a tough one to decipher. Good luck if you want to bet that one.
Oh, no. I'm just saying it's fun viewing. I mean, week 18 last year, you had the Browns play the Ravens on Saturday. So the hay was in the barn there. They had lost. And then you're watching the Titans and you're watching the Patriots. And, Drake May is going to play. Drake May played for 2 seconds. And then in comes, why am I drawing a blank? Joe Milton then comes in. And then you're watching the Titans and it's Will Levis running around. And it was high drama, to quote Chris Myers, high drama and high def.
Which the irony is Joe Milton playing that game allowed the Patriots to be able to get a little bit of trade value for him from the Dallas Cowboys. So this isn't just about getting the top pick. This is also about what you're able to show off with your assets. Yes,
and as you laid out as well, we don't know who the decision makers are going to be, right? On really any of these buildings here that we're talking about. So, as Jori put so well, the players and the coaches want to win, period. And you're getting so many guys on teams like this that are putting players on injured reserve, like the Chiefs today. The Chiefs put 8 guys on injured reserve. I'm exaggerating just a bit, but that's the case. They're not in this conversation right now for the first overall pick. But week 17 and 18, when people say, that game's awful, you know what? It might be awful for you to watch. Maybe you don't enjoy it. But there are so many players in these games that are getting their first chance. They're called up from the practice squad. And this is their first chance to actually get in the game. This might be their only chance. This might be their career moment, right? They've worked their entire life for this moment. You better believe that they're going to put their best effort on tape. And that goes for players at the end of their careers as well. And that goes for guys whose contracts are up. They know that this is their last free agent tape to put out there. Oh, they're playing for themselves. No, they're playing to win the game. Because if you play well, you win the game. You work together, you win the game. So all of that matters. Giants and Raiders, somebody has to win. Now a tie, don't even get me started. Somebody has to win, and then obviously it's going to come down to week 18. All right. We have time for one more thing before we go. Jori, you want to go first?
Let's do it. My one more thing is that while the Cowboys do not have a pass rusher who currently plays for them make the Pro Bowl, they did have 2 pass rushers they drafted make it as 2 of the 3 NFC edge rushers, that being Micah Parsons, who's now with the Green Bay Packers, and DeMarcus Lawrence, who's now with the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that's interesting because when you talk about the Quinnen Williams trade and you talk about the Micah Parsons trade and how would the Cowboys get rid of a great pass rusher, I think there is some belief in the organization that they have been able to hit on pass rushers much more than interior defensive linemen. So I think this Pro Bowl showing, even if the Pro Bowl does have a popularity contest element of it, is a reminder of how the Cowboys have evaluated that position.
All right. So they're doing something right, even if those guys are not there currently on their roster. What do you got, Ben?
Yeah, mine is going to Kansas City, and just I think sometimes the odds are indicative of kind of telling a larger story of the season. The Chiefs were a 5.5-point home underdog last week going into this game on Christmas against the Broncos. That is now up to 13 or 13.5. And so obviously I kind of thought, well, when's the last time that happened? And looking back, they were a 13-point home underdog last in 1977. So obviously that's a pretty long time, almost 50 years. It just kind of shows what things have, devolved to, I guess, in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes out, Gardner Minshew out. Now you have a 3rd-string quarterback. Rashee Rice is out. Problems on the defense as well. They just lost to the Titans the previous week. So a lot of adjustment in there, but that 8-point difference, just for kind of relational value, before the season, Josh Allen over Mitch Trubisky, that was a 7-point difference in terms of the point spread. And so this is an 8-point difference between Gardner Minshew and Chris Oladokun. I probably butchered that name, but a very big difference.
Oladokun.
Thank you.
Really nice guy. It was super helpful for a story at the Super Bowl last year.
I root for him. The market has definitely adjusted far too much on that side. I also don't know that I want to take 13.5 points with this Chiefs roster, but just kind of shows sometimes the odds show exactly how far things have gone down for a team that just appeared in 3 straight Super Bowls.
Wild. Also wild. My one more thing. So I went through Aaron Rodgers' game logs, like, the actual box scores from his rookie year, 2005. He barely got on the field. Brett Favre was the quarterback. But his most extensive action, and really his first real action of his NFL career, was a December game right around now, like Christmas week in 2005. That's a picture from that day. Aaron Rodgers came off the bench against the Ravens. He threw 15 passes. Favre took a seat. It was a blowout. Deion Sanders had an interception that day for the Ravens. He picked off Favre. But I went through line by line in the play-by-play. Deion Sanders and Aaron Rodgers were on the field at the same time in the fourth quarter because Deion made a tackle on a Packers rushing attempt in Rodgers' first series to open up the fourth quarter. So in other words, Aaron Rodgers played against Deion Sanders. Aaron Rodgers, nearly 20 years to the day, same week, is going to play against Shedeur Sanders, who was 3 years old that night in December of 2005. That is nuts. That is crazy. But that shows you Aaron Rodgers' longevity, his staying power, and he's still doing this at 42 years old. Now, there is a chance Rodgers does not play this week. I think it's unlikely. But if the Packers, Aaron Rodgers' old Packers, beat the Ravens on Saturday evening, that means the Ravens are out and the Packers win the AFC North. The game is meaningless at that point for the Steelers. Mike Tomlin was asked, if that happened, would you rest people? He said, I may, but then conceded, and this was Tuesday, that he wasn't even aware, if you believe him in the moment, that the Ravens were playing the night before. He hadn't really contemplated it. I am rooting for Aaron Rodgers to play in that game. Please let it happen. I'd also like to see Myles Garrett get the sack record against Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback he has never sacked. But if that does not happen, then he could get the sack record against Mason Rudolph. And spread holiday cheer. Wouldn't that be fun?
It's too good a nugget. He's got to play just for that nugget.
Yeah. I mean, that is crazy. That is just... Anyway, he's not the first guy to go father-son here at all. Like, we had Michael Pittman on the show 2 weeks ago. Michael Pittman played with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers played with Michael Pittman Sr. So, like, stuff like that has obviously happened. But Aaron Rodgers, Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders. Anyway, that's a show. Happy holidays to you both. Hope you get at least 5 minutes off with the family and, do something nice and enjoy the holidays. And we will be back here next Monday. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody listening, everybody watching. This has been Inside Coverage. That is Jori. That is Ben. My name is Andrew. We will see you next Monday. So long, everybody.